We're talking today with David Guevara of Fenville, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Now, can you begin by giving us some background on yourself? To begin with, where and when were you born?
Okay, I was born here in Martin, Michigan. Back in my dad and my mom were migrant workers, so we would come and work, and then after that, I started working in factories. And later on, I was drafted from Detroit. I had to go to Detroit.
To back up a little bit, when were you born?
1947, October the 19th, 1947.
Okay.
In Martin, Michigan.
All right. Now, your family, so did you, for the migrant workers, were you kind of moving around a lot from place to place?
Yeah, every time we would come from Texas to Michigan and then to Saxton, Missouri, and pick cotton and then go back home. And we'd do that for 20 years. We did it.
All right.
Kept on with
Now, what kind of schooling are you able to get if you're doing that?
Well, like it is right now with a lot of people doing the same thing. We would go to school and sometimes we'd fall behind our grades, but we would make it up. And so that's how, it was done.
So where would you go to school?
We went to school here in Pullman, Michigan for a while. But then as I got older, I started working out in the field, so then I couldn't go to school anymore. Because I think after you were 14 years old, you could start working in the field. So we started working in the field. So therefore, we didn't have that much education until we went back to home and went to school with her. So it was hard, to get the passing grades.
All right. And with your family, did you speak Spanish or English?
Mostly Spanish. English every once in a while, because my dad didn't know how to speak English. So, but my sister and everybody, we spoke English. But when we were around my parents, we would start talking in Spanish.
But you learned English just from the kids in school and people around, and so you could do that pretty well. All right. So how far did you go in school? How many grades?
Actually, I went to the 7th grade, and I went to 7th grade, and then when I joined or I was drafted, then I got my GED in the Marine Corps.
Okay. So basically, you got a little bit behind in school, so you were still finishing 7th grade when you were 14,
right.
I guess, and then you don't have to stay in school.
Right.
All right. So that gets us up into what, about 14, so about 1961 or so?
Right, yeah.
Okay. And then again, what kind of work then were you doing over the next several years?
Well, I started working, like I said, in the farms. Once I was 18, I got a job in a factory here in Douglas, Michigan. So I started working in factories, and I kept working at the fields too, to help my dad. And eventually, when they leave back to Texas, me and my sister will stay and start working in factories. And that's how we started working in factories, and that's the kind of work we did.
So you're going to settle down here rather than
yes.
go someplace
I didn't want
else.
to go back home because there the jobs were mostly in the fields, at that time. And here the factories were paying a lot of good money.
Right.
So we stayed here,
Okay. And then you get your draft notice. So when did that arrive?
That happened back in 68. I got my draft notice here in Michigan, and I had to go to Detroit to take the physical and so forth. And it was a coincidence, because when I went there, they took out the names and they said, David Guevara, yes. They go, how about Pete? They go, Pete's my brother. He was older than I was, but he didn't join because I heard that if you could get married, you wouldn't have to join. So he got married, so he got out of it, and I was the one that had to go. And so we were drafted, and then they sent me a letter that within, I think it was 2 months, I had to go and duck myself in the service.
Now, when you went to Detroit for the physical, were there people there who were trying to do things to beat the system and get out of it?
A lot of people were doing that because they knew once you drafted, you were going to go to Vietnam. That's the reason they were drafting the people, and so they were making all kinds of excuses, like they couldn't walk, or they had. Everybody was doing all kinds of. I didn't, because I didn't have nothing wrong with me,
Now, these other guys, do you think that was successful, or did the recruiters see through most of it?
Some were and some weren't. Some made it and some didn't. Just about 90% of all made it, but some were trying to get it, and so it happened. I mean, people didn't want to go in the military. They knew.
Yeah. Now, what was your attitude toward all of that?
I kind of liked it because, like I said, I worked in factories and all this stuff, and I've never been out to California or play like that. I kind of adventurous to me. I wanted to go and see California and other places, which I'd never been.
Okay. Now, did you know much of anything about Vietnam or the war over there at that time?
just heard about it on the TV. I didn't know much about it. And it was just starting. I think 68 or 63 started.
Well, 68 is when it began to get ugly.
Yeah. And that's the time that I got in. When
Okay.
it got ugly.
Yeah, but now you didn't just follow through on the draft. What did you do instead?
What happened? We after that I got drafted, I went back to Texas to visit my mom and everybody, and I was with a bunch of guys that we were sitting there, and there was about 8 of us, and all 8 of us were all drafted at the same time. All my next door neighbors, they were practically drafted, and so it was about 8 of us, and some decided to go in the Navy and some in the Army, and us 3 decided to go in the Marine Corps. They go, "You guys are crazy. Why are you going to go in the Marine Corps? You know, it's terrible." I said, "Well, they say it's a tough, you know, tough Marine Corps that you have to, you know, got to be good for that." I said, "Well, we're going to try it," and we did, and we got in, all 3 of us.
All right. So basically, you go ahead and enlist in the Marine Corps, and so that gives you a little bit different status than if you just waited for the draft board to send you someplace.
Because
Okay.
if I waited for the draft, I was going to be inducted in the Army, and I didn't want to go in the Army. Actually, I thought the Marine Corps was, you know, more of a challenge, and so that's why we joined the Marine Corps.
All right. Now, where then did they send you for boot camp?
Well, we left from Harlingen, Texas, all the way to in California, but it was in El Toro, California. That was the advanced training, and Camp Pendleton was the basic. So we were trained for about, I'd say about 5 or 6 months.
Okay.
Training.
Now, when you arrive at basic training, what kind of reception do you get?
It's terrible. I mean, people think it's, you know, we got there, and the first thing, we got there at 4 in the morning. The first thing they made us do is go and take a shower, cut your hair, do all kinds of stuff, give you the tennis shoes and all that. So by 5 o'clock we were done. I said, "Oh boy, we're going to go and get some sleep or something." And no, he said, no, we're going to start running. I said, "What? We're going to start running?" We started running, and we were supposed to run, I think it was about 5 miles. And everybody was throwing up, and some were falling and everything. I said, "Man, this is bad." But after that, we did that. Then we had breakfast. Then we ran again, and that's all it was, just running. Just put us in shape. And man, I said, "Wait a minute, this ain't what we wanted," you know. But,
What kind of shape were you in when you joined?
well, I weighed about 210, 15 pounds. My other friends were almost the same, you know. And that's we were, you know, we weren't that shape. We worked in factories and so forth, but. Once you got into the training, it was rough. Now, I could do it. I could manage myself because I was pretty good at doing all kinds of stuff. But there were some there that were just crying and falling apart. They couldn't do it. I mean,
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess the farm work is hard work and it's outdoors and it can be hot.
so you're always, so you're used to that, you know. So it was no problem. It was hard, but not as bad as others. And so we had the training and the basic and all that.
Now, aside from running, what else were they making you do?
Oh, aside from running, you would do all kinds of exercise, push-ups, a lot of them sit-ups. I mean, to a point, by the time I got done, I could do 150 sit-ups in about 3 minutes. I could run 24 miles non-stop, and so many times, and all kinds of push-ups and sit-ups, and all kinds of training for fighting, you know.
How much emphasis do they have on discipline?
A lot.
Okay.
Oh, a lot. There was so much. The main thing was they wanted you to obey what they said, because they would tell us, "You look, this is going to happen if you're on the war and you don't obey us. You might lose your life. You gotta remember to obey us." And I remember a time we were marching before we were going to graduate. We were marching, and just because somebody made a wrong turn, he stopped everybody. We were all dressed in nice clothing, you know, because we were going to the parade march. And just because somebody turned to the right, everybody got it. I mean, they started putting us and started doing us push-ups, about 30 push-ups. We got all dirty and everything. They go, "That to teach you guys, you got to be in sync." They go, "Because this here, it's easy, okay, but once you get over there, you got to listen to what the sergeant tells you. He's the one that's going to keep you alive."
Yeah. Now, how easy or hard was it for you to adjust to the military discipline?
It was not that bad for me. I kind of took it right off. I was good at that. I mean, I learned, you know, I learned one thing, that when they sent you out to have breakfast, you had 5 minutes to eat. Now, if you took your time, like some would start talking and all, and by the time they knew it was time to get out, and people wouldn't eat. And I learned things, you know, as I seen things. When you take a shower, you got to do it within 5 or 10 minutes. If you don't, you're out of there. But then they'll check you out, and if you didn't take a shower, they'll make you run and stuff like that. So I learned quick. I said, because there were some guys that were not, they would not make it, so they had to redo it again. And I said, "No, I'm not going to redo it again. I'm going to do it one time only." And yeah, it was terrible. I mean, but it was good. It was good. It was good for
Yeah.
the physical.
Okay, now, what kind of guys were training alongside you? Were they all about your age, or?
The average was about 22, 23, 24.
Okay, so some of them,
Yeah.
even a little, well, that's pretty close to your age, but so there were not so many that were like 19, 18.
Not that many. Mostly
Okay.
they were in their 20s.
Now, were a lot of these guys draftees or people who had enlisted to avoid the draft?
A lot of them were not drafted, but they signed to be in the Marine Corps.
Okay, so they did enlist, they did volunteer for that. All right. And were they from all over the country?
All over. I mean, I seen guys from New Jersey, New York, Texas, all over the country. You would meet them, you would start communicating with them, and they were from all over. I mean, they were
All
right
right.
up.
And the guys who were training you, did you have a sense that some of them had been to Vietnam already?
Oh yeah, there was quite a few. In fact, they would show us their scars where they got shot and stuff like that. And he said, "You guys, it's rough over there. So you got to learn you got to know what you're doing here. You can't just make it and it's like a game. No, it's not a game. This is life and death."
All right. Now, when you get to the end of the basic training, what do they do with you at that point?
At that time, after we got done from the basic, we went to advanced, where they would teach you how to eat rice, how to like if you were in a prison camp, how to escape, how to use the sky, the light, the stars, and everything, how to get back, and all they would give you was rice. They were just gonna give you rice, nothing on it, and then you would eat that. They go, and then we're gonna let you escape through this area, but we want to see how you guys will make it out. And that was the key to advanced training on that. And then they showed how to fight in a close hand-to-hand combat. How to, if you got two guys, how to put one in front of the other so they can get a hold of you. A bunch of stuff they showed you how to do, and so they showed a lot advanced training at night. How to, where to put your rifle and so forth. They did this thing where we would march in 20, 25 miles sometimes, and then you would take a break and everybody go to sleep, and then they would come around, and the ones that they did not have their rifles held together, and if they pull it out of your hands and so forth, they would make you do exercise. And I remember a lot of times I would have it around my hand. I could feel them tugging. We were all sleeping. I could feel the tugging. I said, "Wait a minute." So what I did from then on, I slept on top of it. Before I had it just in my hand, and a lot of guys got caught and they would slip it off. So I learned to, because they tell, this is your babe. This is your baby. Whatever you do, don't lose it, because it's gonna cost you. And I would practically sleep on top of it. And that was why they couldn't get it out of my hands, But they were testing you to find out how much, you learned from training.
So they really were gearing this very much toward what you might well encounter
Yeah.
in
Everybody,
Vietnam.
yeah. And everybody there were some cooks, wiremans, telephone operators, all kinds of Jeep, trucks, everybody went through the same training because you were going to Vietnam.
Okay. Now, did you get any more specialized training than that?
Well, they gave me this thing called wireman. I was communications. What we did, we would install telephones, so we had training on that, how to go up to poles and how to connect the wires and all that stuff. So we had that. I had that training for wireman communications.
Okay. And at what point did you do the studying for the GED? Was that later? Or?
After we came back from
Okay.
overseas, that's when we
right.
we got our GED.
Okay,
and
so we don't have that. So right now you're just training to go over there,
Right.
but you are getting trained as a wireman.
As a wireman.
Now, you only had a 7th grade education.
Right.
So were the other guys training as wiremen?
No, well, you'd be surprised. There was some guys that I talked to them when we went there. Some guys had master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and I knew these guys. They were from San Antonio, and I became friends with them because we went through the training all the way to before we left Vietnam. And these guys would be with us, and they had degrees and all that. A bunch of guys had degrees, and they were all in there. There were some from, I learned this from previous experience, that there was some soldiers that their fathers were senators and representatives and all that. So what you would do, you would hang around with them, because if you hung with them, they wouldn't make them work as hard. So if you stay with the rest of the guys, and the first thing everybody did was hang around with these guys, because they treat them different. He still had training, but it wasn't as severe. So we did that. We did that a lot. Hey, your dad's a what? a representative from the state of, oh, okay. And hey, I heard about, let's go with it, you know. So we became friends with him, buddies.
All right. So how long then did your training take between the basic and then the advanced? How long were you in training?
It was about close to 5 or 6 months of training.
All right. So when did you complete the advanced training?
It was about 6 months after I joined. So about August.
Okay, it's about August '68.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then do they let you go home before they send you overseas?
Yeah, we went home for a couple of weeks, and then we came back, and then that's when they assigned us to go to Vietnam. All of us that we came together was 185 Marines. We all got in the same plane and we took off till we stopped in Hawaii first to refuel. And we were there, and I remember that there was a lot of Hawaiian women putting those things on you, and I'm always watching, and I seen the ladies and everybody was looking at it, but then I noticed in the corner of my eye there was about 4 or 5 tables, all kinds of ice cream and cakes and everything. So instead of staying there, I went that way, because I said, I don't think we're gonna have ice cream over there or cakes. So I started eating. Now the guys see me, so we left they left the women's, and we started eating all the stuff. We were just eating all kinds of sweets, because hey, I don't think they're gonna have that kind of stuff over there. So we had that. But after that, we got to it was called Guam. We were there for about 2 weeks, all kinds of shots, all kinds of, and more training. And then finally we went to Vietnam, Da Nang.
Okay. Now on Guam, did they try to take you out into the forest and try to give you jungle training, or just?
No, we only did was just all kinds of shots, all kinds of weaponry, everything, you know. But hardly no training. We were just there to get all the paperwork and everything. And that's what it was. And then from there we went to Vietnam at Da Nang.
Okay. So you landed at Da Nang, and then do you remember if you got there during the day or at night?
It was during the day.
Okay.
And the reason I remember that is when they opened the door from the airport, it was about 120. And as soon as I got out, I went, wow, man, this is hotter than Texas, and humid, and it was terrible, but, you know.
Welcome to Vietnam.
Yeah, welcome to Vietnam. I said, oh, man. And we all got there, and a funny thing about it, we all went to this big, huge place where we're loading the Marines up and so forth, and trucks, and big 6x4 trucks or whatever, and they were loading up 20, 35 every truck, and they take them. And at the very end, I could watch all of my friends say, where are you going? They would ask me, I don't know yet. Everybody's taking off in the trucks. Finally, when there was about 3 guys left, I asked the guy there, where am I going to? They were, your transportation is going to be here in a minute. So within 20 minutes, I got a Jeep, and it was me, a lieutenant, and another corporal from San Antonio. We got in the Jeep, and they took it to an airport. I said, where are we going? An airport? Yeah. So we went through downtown Da Nang, and then we finally got to that Marble Mountain. I said, we're here, airport. I said, wow, this ain't bad. I mean, you know. But you won't believe it, by the time we got there was a overrun. Marble Mountain was to my right as we got there, and Marble Mountain was being overrun. The Vietnamese Viet Cong overrun the special forces. They had a howitzer there protecting everything, and they got overrun. So they sent the Marines, and they sent a big forgot the name of that plane that has a big machine gun. It just keeps on. I forgot the name of it, but I could see it, and we could see it. And look at that, man! It looked like you're in TV. You know, all these bullets coming through, and they finally got it back. But I found later in the Channel 35 that Marble Mountain, underneath there, the military didn't know that. Underneath there, they had a hospital. The Viet Cong were having the hospital there, and nobody knew about it until they did a study on that, and that's what it was. They had a hospital for all the people that were being injured, and under our nose, you know, we never knew that.
Right. Okay. Now, can you describe the base itself? I mean, what did it look like? How was it laid out?
The base itself was. I was fortunate because the base was right next to the China beach, and right next to us was the Navy, and to the other side was the Army, and then in front was some other. So I know we were surrounded by military, Air Force, Navy, and all that. And then so we were pretty secured, I thought, you know. But the problem was that that place where we were at, they attacked it just about every other night because they wanted to destroy the helicopters and airplanes. So we got hit a lot of times and overcoming rockets but we had bunkers and we had places where we could run and get in there but that's that. I thought it was safe, but it really wasn't. People got killed there. A lot of people got killed.
Okay. So the sort of the hill or the terrain feature that they call Marble Mountain, you weren't physically on that.
Mountain. I was on the
you were below that, kind of between there and the coast.
Yeah, and the Marble Mountain and this other mountain here, they had rockets and all kinds of stuff to protect this area here.
Yeah.
And so that's what they call it. Marble
Okay.
Mountain.
So when you got there, then what duties were you assigned?
I was in communications, so my duty was to do to replace telephones for the nurses and pilots and everybody. And I drove a Jeep, then I would go in and replace them or fix them. And also I had security. We had to do security once a month. Like our department would have to do that. And so we'd have to do that defensive around our thing. We would have doing that type of security. But even then, I recall one time when we were doing the security, I had a bunker and this other friend of mine had a tower. So we're all covered there. And I remember that they call them walking. They were walking the mortar rounds. And you could see the flashes far away. I ain't going to get it. Within 5 minutes, we seen, hey, they're coming closer. So we ran. I ran to my bunker. And he started to run towards the top of the tower. Well, just lo and behold, by the time he went halfway, a mortar hit and it exploded, but it got him in his leg. So then we have to go and help him, and they brought a Jeep to take him back home, but take him back to the hospital. But it was rough places, I thought it was going to be easy. But one thing I do remember that was really odd, well, not odd, but strange. They called me because I was the radio man also, and the radio man from another area, and they told us to speak in Spanish, not in English. I said, what is that? They go, because they know, Vietnamese know how to listen to the English language, but not Spanish. So that's the way we communicate. And I would tell my friend, can you imagine that we're talking in Spanish and they don't understand what we're saying? But that's what they did make us do, speak in Spanish.
All right, because they could be listening into the frequencies and so forth.
Yeah, it was really something.
All right. When you arrived at the base, what kind of reception did you get? What happened when you got there?
Well, when we got there, right off, the sergeant said, we're going to send you to this bunker or this place here. And so it was just, you're in, sign your name. This is going to be your place. Go over there and bye.
Okay.
And then the following day, the sergeant came and then he introduced me to the rest of the guys, and I started working right off.
Now, what sort of size unit were you actually working with, or how many guys would you work with or get to know?
Our unit, which was communications, we were two. We were radio and wire communications. There was about maybe 50 of us all together. But they had other guys that were they would come and stop there on their way up to the jungles. They would come and stop there. And so we had a lot of units around there anyway. But those two friends of mine, they had a bachelor's and master's. They came one time. They found out where I lived at, and they came over. And I had told them what grade I had. One of them I had told them what grade I was in, and they came over and they seen where I had a big. We had a big place where tent where we stayed, and we had water and all that stuff, and all kinds of stuff. It was nice. And the guys came and they go, Dave, can you get us some underwear and some socks, because we're out in the jungle, they're all rotted. They go, sure, just give them to me, I'll get you some of that. And then said, hey Dave, by the way, tell Mike, they go, tell him what grade did you graduate? They go, I went to 7th grade. They go, you went to 7th grade? And then he laughs and he goes, I got a master's. This guy's got a bachelor's. We're out in the jungle, why are you here? I don't know. I'm glad that God gave me that opportunity, because these guys were out there, and you would see, they would open up their pants, and you could see, all that stuff,
jungle rot,
and all that stuff, and I was, man, and I felt sad for them, but I never did see them after that, so I don't know whatever happened to them, but it was terrible out there, I guess. They did offer me if I wanted to be a gunner in a Huey. And I said, it's $50 more. I said, no, forget it, because too many people are getting killed. I said, no, I don't want to get in there. I'm just going to stay where I'm at.
Okay. Now, describe a little bit more your setup there, your quarters or whatever you had.
The quarters, we were about, maybe we had about 10 bunks. We had all kinds of guys, our guys there, and we had a little refrigerator. We had a bunker right next to it. We had a big bunker next to us. Everybody had a bunker,
Right.
because that was the safety net we had. And we all worked in different shifts, first, second, and third shift. Everybody had a shift, and they were all from different states: Georgia, Illinois, Kentucky. I mean, all over. They were all over. Blacks, whites, Spanish. I mean, you name it. We had black guys in our unit, in our tent, and whites and Indians and the whole works. Washington. I mean, we had them all there, but we were all, we had it all. We did pretty good together,
So you got along with each other?
everybody, Yeah, we got along with everybody, and we had it was pretty good, Sometimes you want to go home, people would say you want, but the problem with some of them, they would get letters, Dear John letters, and that's what the problem was, because they start, feeling bad, and they would tell us about, they come over and tell us about, how his wife said, well, I don't want to be married to you anymore, And then another one was send him pictures of his wife with a boyfriend, so he could give him a divorce. And we had one incident where a friend of ours, he was a Spanish guy from San Antonio. He got some razor blades and cut them in small pieces and swallowed them, because his wife was trying to get a divorce. And so he said he thought by doing this he would be able to go back home. And we went to see him in the hospital, and we talked to him and so forth. How do you feel? Well, they're trying to see what they're going to do with me. I said, well, okay, well, they want to come and see you. So me and my friend went out there, and I said, can you imagine that, doing that for a woman? I mean, it's tough for a lot of guys. When I left, I didn't have no girlfriends. I had girlfriend, but I let them go. I said, no, I don't want to be in that predicament these guys are. And there was a lot of sadness in that. There was a lot of sadness.
All right. Now, were there, aside from them, were there other kinds of morale problems? I mean, were there guys who were doing drugs and things like that on the base? Or
there was a lot of marijuana going around. I remember, because I seen it. Some of my friends showed me. You get a backpack, and it was full of marijuana and cigarettes for $2, and the guy would buy them. I couldn't see that. I didn't want to. Because if they catch you with that, you're going, to jail and so forth. So that one thing I didn't want to prove. But yeah, there was drugs. That was the main thing, drugs. That because they felt lonely, so they would get high and so forth. And that was the time they had it over there. Beer, a lot of beer too.
Yeah.
The beer, I remember, was 14-15 cents a bottle. You could buy a case for about $3, and everybody. Now that I did drink sometimes,
Now, on a base, could you get beer that was cold?
Yeah. Basically had the fortunate thing about us that we were in the base where we had this kitchen and everything. We had they had the beer joint where you could go and buy some beer and sit there with the NCOs and other people, and that's how we would get it.
Yeah. Now, would they also provide entertainment on the bases? Would the USO come through?
Well,
or?
USO would come in, but it would come to Da Nang, and only certain people, they would draw names, and those were the ones that would see them. I remember Bob Hope and all the girls came over, and everybody wanted to get there, but only about, in our area, probably only about 5 got into it, because there were so many people wanted to get there.
Right.
But yeah, Bob Hope, I remember Bob Hope was there.
But they didn't bring anything out to your actual base where you were?
No, they wouldn't bring it, no.
Okay.
It would only have to be, area like that.
All right. Now, talk a little bit about what you were actually doing. I mean, what kinds of equipment did you work on?
Well,
whose equipment did you work on?
I started working with communications, like installing telephones and wiring. They showed me all that, how to do it. Switchboard, they showed me how to work the switchboard on the back, how to hook up the lines and everything. And they asked me, you want this job or you rather be outside? I said, I'd rather be outside, because here you're always behind the switchboard and talking. And I don't want to do that. I want to do something being outside. So we learned to do the communication. We had all kinds of phones, all kinds of hookups for the radars and for all kinds of things. We did that, and that was our job. Get on top of the poles. In fact, that we would climb up to the poles, and just to do it, because we were Marine Corps, right? So we would go on top of the poles and stand on it like this, and wanted to see who could last the longest. And we stand, and you could be waving like this, but we was standing on it. And I think to myself, now if I look at a pole, I won't get on top of that. But at that time we were so young that we would go like this. I said, man, look at that. And the other guys on the other side, hey, let's see who can last longer. I mean, crazy stuff like that.
All right. Now, where you were during the day, there wasn't going to be anybody outside the camp who'd take a shot at you or anything.
No. The only time it was at night.
Mm-hmm.
At night is when they would,
Yeah.
the rockets were the one that.
So you got rocket attacks, you got mortar attacks.
Attacks.
Now, how did that work? I mean, could you hear the rocket in time to take cover, or when the first one came in, was that a surprise?
You would see, usually you would see that, like in one instance, we were watching this, I'll never forget, it was Green Beret, out by the China Sea. We were out there and all we were just in our underwear and the skis. We just, there was no women there. So we all took our chairs and we were watching this Green Beret thing. And far away, we seen a flash and we heard the sound, boom. And the guy said, no, it's going, it's going that way. But then as we listened again, we were watching the movie, all of a sudden it started getting closer. I said, wait a minute, it's coming in. So there was about 50 of us. So everybody took off and ran to the bunkers. And we ran and got in there and finally it passed away because once the flare came out, the guys that were in the towers could see it and they could radio to the gunners or to the thing to attack them. But after that, I think the following day they sent us over to a detail. I had to, a bunch of us, about 5 guys, detailed to take a little bucket and a little, like a little spoon or something like that, to pick up the pieces that were left there, because the bar that was close to us got a direct hit, and there was 2 or 3 were killed, but they wanted to find out what was left, so we were picking up scalps of people and buckets. We were picking that stuff, and whatever you could find, and they wanted it. And I said, look at that, we were that close. And so we seen stuff like that. The attack would be almost every once or twice a week. Only reason because they were trying to they're going after the helicopter.
Right.
But at the same time, they didn't know how to control them. So that time they would hit where we were at.
Yeah.
And so that was, so I had this, when I came back home, I remembered that I heard the siren and all of a sudden I jumped to the floor. I said, man, what's going on? My mom would say, what's wrong with you? Oh, no, no. So I was trying to play it off, but I remembered I would, jump to the floor because that was the first thing you do, jump to the floor and then run into the bunker. And so.
Now, how much actual damage would the rocket attacks or mortar attacks do?
A lot. It all depends how big they were, but they were the 122s or something. They would create a big hole. I mean, it just, and the fragments when it exploded, it just, if you were in your little unit and not in the bunker, the shrapnel would come over and a big thing, and it would just get you. So that's why you had to get into the bunker, and you couldn't be out there watching. In fact, there was one incident where this guy about 1,000 yards from us, he was drunk and he seen the rockets coming in, and that's what they told us, that he kept looking at the rockets coming in because he thought, oh man, it looks nice. And by the time I knew one fell on top of him or close to the bunker, he got killed. So they would emphasize, hey, you guys, get in the bunkers. It was dangerous out there.
Now, did they have much luck actually hitting the aircraft?
No, because they didn't know how to control it. They might hit once. I think all the time I was there, probably they only hit one. Because they didn't know how to adjust the thing.
Yeah. And they're, I think, mostly firing blind. They
Yeah, that's what it was,
They would
playing
just
blind, yeah.
put some shots and then have to get away quickly because some of the would come out after.
Shooting at them, yeah.
Now, in the time you were there, did any enemy ground forces or sappers ever try to get into your base?
Yeah, there was quite a few times that happened. That's why they had a security, because a lot of times they would come in. They come in because right close to it there was like a river, and they would come in through the water, and they would bring those big. I forgot.
Satchel charges?
Yeah, satchel charges. And they put them and try and put them close to the boats because they had boats from the Navy there too, and they would do that. But they always were watching. They always had spotlights there, so they're always watching that. But you had those, and they had some that we found out they attacked the army where we were, not us, but another, and they were only about maybe half a mile from us. So they did try and attack, but there was so many military areas there they couldn't touch us, because of the helicopters and all that. They were really protected. That was the key, because that's what the Marines would get into the helicopter and take them to a different place to fight, and they had to protect that area. But no.
So there was a fair amount of enemy activity, but the base on the whole was not in any real danger of getting overrun or anything. Yeah.
No, they were protected. Only the rock would come in the mornings.
Now, on the base, did you have Vietnamese civilians who'd come in and do any work on the base?
Yeah. In fact, I was assigned to them. They would come in with a garbage collecting stuff, and women and men. And I felt kind of sad one time because as I was guarding them, they were picking up all the trash, and it had rained the day before, and there was two 55-gallon drums of water with food and all that. And I know that there was somehow I noticed that they grabbed the bologna that was floating and they started eating it. And I said, look at that, man! How sad that they come here to do that, to eat that stuff, and they would eat it. And I'm pretty sure when they took it home, they didn't throw it away; they ate it. But then they also had something else. They would get some that pretend they would be a garbage collector, and they would just size and see how far this direct the shots from that. So you had to watch them all the time, see what they were doing.
Because were they pacing
Yeah,
off
pacing,
distances?
Once you've seen that, you had to watch them. So you had to be watching all the time what they were doing.
Now, would there be Vietnamese personnel there, or South Vietnamese, either military or police types?
In our base, no. We didn't know how to communicate with them. Well, just by signs, Okay, and that's how we had it, and that our area. But yeah, it was a time that who would have thought that.
Yeah. Now, did you go off the base much at all?
I didn't want to go off the base. I did go a couple of times to Da Nang to do deliver some stuff with some trucks, volunteer. But after a couple of times, I said no, I don't want to get there because it's rough. So no, I just stayed in the base all the time.
So when you did go down to Da Nang, I mean, how did you just get in a truck and go down, or?
Yeah, they would have about 2 or 3 trucks with us with rifles and 16s rifles on the front and on the top, and be watching because we had to deliver certain things and come back. So you would always have 2 or 3 trucks, and but it was.
And now, did you have to worry about mines or traps on the roads, or?
Not in this area.
Okay.
This area was pretty because there was a lot of military trucks going back and forth. They had it always taken care of. Out in the jungle, that's where you had to really wait that.
Now, what did Da Nang itself look like, or what do you remember when you went into town?
Da Nang was pretty big. It was a big place. It reminded me. Well, I never been to a Vietnamese city, but it was a big one. A lot of people, a lot of friendly people. There was a lot of friendly people that would wave and talk to you and so forth. But like I said, I didn't stay there that long. I just I just stayed in my base. I didn't want to go out. Like the rest of the guys would go out to the bars out there in Da Nang and so forth. I stayed close to my.
Yeah. Now, did they give you any sorts of warnings or instructions if you were going to go to Da Nang, what to do and not do, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, there was all kinds of stuff. Especially, don't go to the where all the women's are. Don't avoid those areas because and avoid because you never know, there might be somebody there trying to get you. So if you go in groups, don't go like by yourself. If you decide to go to barbers, don't go by yourself. Always get 3 or 4 guys in groups, and watch yourself. And watch yourself if you start going out with women, because there's all kinds of disease there. So you better watch it. So I said, no, I don't want anything like that to do. I just stayed away from that.
Now, you said your base was close to China Beach. Would you go there?
Oh yeah, that's where we would run. I would run a lot there, run around, go swimming, and all kinds of stuff. We did that when we were off work, and it was beautiful. People went fishing there. Souls went fishing. You see all kinds of guys doing exercise and all that. But it was maybe from my area, probably like from here to the road. It's only about 1,000 feet.
Okay, so
it was
very
pretty
close.
Yeah, pretty close.
Okay. Yeah. Now, did you have much of a sense of how the war itself was going while you were there? Because you're in there from kind of late summer, kind of 68 into 69.
Yeah.
Did you have much of a feel for what was going on?
What we heard and so forth from people coming out from the jungles and so forth. The guys were saying, hey, this war, it ain't gonna be won. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's. Some would question why we were there, but a lot of them complained. They go, "You can't win here. You can't. It's just we're out in a different place. This is a different type of war. Over there, you can see the people. And you go to World War I or II and so forth. But here, it's jungle. It's under. They all had those tunnels underneath, so you could never find them. You could never spot them. And a lot of the soldiers said, "I've seen some guy had a big hole in his where he got shot. I mean, I had a big hole in Marine Corps," and he said, "Man, I don't know why we're here, but but nobody complained. Everybody just did their job."
Yeah. How well do you think your own unit performed? I mean, did you guys get your job done efficiently and effectively?
Yeah, we were excellent. We, like anybody else, we were all trying to do the best because if you did your best, you would get promoted. Not promoted, but also they would give you like go to a bar for that night. So everybody wanted to do the best you could to get in there. But as far as yeah, we did our best. We did pretty good.
And the guys who would, smoke pot or whatever, would they just do that when they were off duty?
Yeah, off duty. Usually when they were off duty, because the boss, the sergeant, if they see him, you have to notice. But they would do it off duty. They would have beer and everything, like on the weekends.
Okay. And what did you think of the sergeants and the officers that you worked with?
They were great. I mean, I had sergeants, black sergeants, white sergeants, Spanish sergeants. They were all great. We didn't have no problem. We were all together pretty good. We were all, we watched our bags and we joked and all that. And I remember when we used to, we set it up when we said officer coming this way, we were about 20 of us guys. And we say, get in strike, let's get him. And so we would all start separating. We were all in a bundle. By the time he was getting closer, we started getting in line. So then the first one would go like this. And then the next one like this. And after about 3-4 times, he just stayed like that. He said, these guys are pulling, but stuff like that. We do funny things like that. Another instance, some black guys would come, hey brother, give me some soul, that's how they talk. And we would, a Spanish guy, we would pick up our souls and show them to them. Our soul. Oh, come on, you guys. But it was just something to enjoy ourselves. But now we had a good time. We had no problem with blacks and whites. Everything was unity there.
Okay. Now, over the course of your year there, were men rotating in and out individually, so kind of coming and going?
Yeah, that's what it had. After you spend a year in, you would have to go up. So it was all set up there. Maybe 5 leave and then 5 come in, and they would just like that in a circle. Just kept on going.
Now, for your kind of unit, did that rotation system work pretty well? Because most of the guys knew what they were doing, and the other guys could learn. And
yeah, because they didn't send them all home. They would send so many, so they have enough guys to show the rest.
Right.
And so that's the way they.
Yeah, and you weren't taking a lot of casualties, so most of the guys would be there the whole time.
The most we had was about three or four. That's all we had. A lot of attacks, but nobody casualties because we were all prepared for that.
Okay. Now, a lot of guys in the Marine Corps, they would be overseas for 13 months rather than 12, because the Army was 12. Did you stay in Vietnam for 13 or 12?
I stayed for 12.
That's for 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't like that.
Now, did you know going in that you were only going to be in for 12, or was it not really clear?
Yeah, they told us that we were going to go for a year, and after that we'd be coming out.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to extend your service, but I didn't want to do that. But a lot of guys did because of the money.
Now, did they make you that offer? Did they?
Yeah, they gave you that offer. If you want to stay, you can stay. And I said, no, it's no. Okay.
Now, were you one of those guys who was kind of counting down the days until he got to go home?
Oh yeah, we all did. We were all thinking, man, it's getting close, and man, I only got, you would have a calendar. You'd start marking it down, and everybody said, man, hey, you guys, I want to go back home. I want to buy a new car. I'm out of here. Why don't you extend? Forget it. I'm out of here. So we were all, after 7 months, you start thinking, hey, it's time. It's getting close. It's getting close.
Yeah. Now, did you communicate much with the people back home while you were overseas?
I wasn't really a good writer, but to write letters. But I had a friend of mine that would buy me some beer. He would write letters to my brothers and sisters. And oh yeah, Dave, I'll write for you. And but yeah, I would write to my mom and my brothers and a couple of girls, but nothing personal.
Now, did they send you stuff? I mean, did they send
my
you
mom
packages?
Oh,
or?
I tell you, we had some Spanish guys because we were Spanish guys, right? Well, our moms would send us tortillas. See, they didn't have tortillas there. And they would send us tortillas. I would have thought flour tortillas. And get them in a styrofoam, and they would send them in. And a friend of mine would say, "Hey, Dave, I got tortillas. Well, let's go and eat." And the rest of the guys, "Hey, man, how about you guys got tortillas?" Then my mom sent me tortillas and some Mexican candy, right? So we would get that at least every 4 or 5 months. We would get that.
So the tortillas would be okay. They would travel.
Well,
all right?
some would be okay. Some would be a little bit of when they start getting a little bit green, a little bit. But the guy said, "Forget it. We'll eat them anyway." He said, "I don't care. Let's have them." So we would get like maybe 2 dozen. The other guy would get another 2 dozen, and we would say, "Man, we got them." And you didn't want to tell the rest of the guys because they, hear about it and they want to come after them. So it was really something that it was enjoyable. And then they sent candies and all that stuff.
All right. Now, are there other particular things that happened to you in Vietnam, or things that you remember that kind of stand out in your memory that you haven't brought into the story here yet?
Well, I've seen, like I said, I've heard things that we had helicopters where the troops get in there and take off. And one time, uh, as they were loading up, I think they had 5 or 6 helicopters. They were going to go and fight in a certain area. Well, one of the helicopters, it was foggy, raining foggy, and one of the helicopters veered off to the left instead of to the right because the rest were going to the right. And what he did, he hit head on to a mountain, and everybody got killed.
Mm-hmm.
So we heard about it because we were there all the time. They were just like our friends. And did you know that what's his name got killed? They didn't know how it happened. The helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
It was foggy. The pilot somehow missed it, and they all got killed. And a lot of people don't know stuff like that. Things like that
Yeah,
happen.
there are a lot of accidents. and
Yeah, a
things,
lot of accidents. Yeah.
Now, would they bring combat casualties into your base, or?
They would bring them in. That was the main place where they bring them in, and then they take them to different places. But they
Mhm.
would bring them in, and I was always around because I was I was doing the wiring, and I would
Mhm.
see helicopters bringing in the wounded and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So you could see that. So you see that kind of stuff, and I liked it because I seen those big helicopters with all kinds of machine guns and
Mhm.
everything, and I said, look at that, and I got pictures of those, But so my sisters and my brothers took them, but we seen a lot. Yeah, there was a lot. The worst part that I noticed was the Dear John letters for the guys that were there.
Mhm.
How sad I thought myself. How sad these guys are fighting, and the women are,
Mhm.
for those guys. I felt sad for them.
All right. Okay. So then, when did you get to go back to the States then?
I get up there. I think I got there a year after
Mm-hmm.
'69,
Yeah.
and we landed in Okinawa again. But the strange thing is, from we landed there, we took off again. But this time we didn't stop in Hawaii. We just flew for, I think it was 15 hours, 14, 15 hours nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all, we were anxious to go home. Man, look at this, look at down. All you see is water.
Yeah.
15 hours, nonstop. I said, does this thing have enough fuel for it or what?
Mhm.
Everybody was, hey, what's going on here?
Now, were you on a commercial plane?
It
or-
was a commercial
Oh, okay.
plane. Yeah, it was a commercial plane. They would use those.
Yeah. So, what's the mood of the guys in the plane going back from Vietnam?
Oh, everybody was happy. Everybody was, man, we're getting home finally. We're gonna go see. So everybody's happy. In fact, we landed in San Francisco,
Mhm.
and everybody just went to the bars. Everybody started going to the bars, and then we went back to El Toro to get our papers and everything done. And so it was good. It was good to be back
Yeah.
home.
Now, when you got back, I mean, did you encounter any protesters in the airport or things
They-
like that?
Not in the airport, but in the news and all thing, how they were doing that, and we felt kind of bad that happened. I think that was the only war that they were so against it. They had all kinds of protests, and
Mhm.
so as soon as we got there, we would take our uniforms off.
Mhm.
Yeah, we take our uniforms off.
Didn't want. Okay. Now, when you got back, you go back to El Toro. You still have time left.
Yeah, I had
in your
another
enlistment.
3 or 4 months.
Right.
At that time, they wanted me. I was still doing the same job I had,
Mm-hmm.
but they wanted me to extend. But I
Mhm.
said no. I'm getting out of here. Well, what's wrong? They were nothing. I just did my time, and I'm gonna go home.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But your enlistment was only for 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Okay. Now, so basically, you just stayed on the base and just did wiring and
all that
communications job
communication, yeah.
and that sort of thing. Now, what would you do when you had time off?
Over there,
Yeah.
well, we would go out to town, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a coincidence that happened to me there in Santa Ana, California. We went there with some guys, and then I went to this place by myself, and there was this lady, pretty lady, and she said, buy me a beer. I said, sure. I was
Mhm.
a little bit about her beer. They were, hey, I want something to eat. Sure, I'll get you something to eat. Well, I didn't know that she said, let's go outside. I said, sure. And then she went between two buildings, and as she was going there, she went, come over. I said, I was going to go over, but then I felt something tell me, in me, I don't know, something told me, run.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, a Marine Corps, you right? I'm not afraid of anything, but I felt something tell me, run. So as she was going like this, I ran. I ran for about a mile all the way to the bus station. Well, the following day found out that lady, what they were doing with the motorcycle gangs, they would tell the guy to come over,
Mhm.
and when he come over, they'd be waiting with a stick or something,
Mhm.
and this guy that happened to him that night, he got a cracked skull, and they would take their money. But I felt that, hey, and after that, I never go to the bars anymore.
Yeah.
But can you imagine that? I mean, stuff like that would happen.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
So you basically finish out your time then in the Marine Corps. So when did you get back home?
I got home after that. I think about after I didn't even stay there. I just flew back to Houston, Texas, and from there I went home to my mom and my brothers and sisters. And
Okay. Now, while you were at El Toro there, after you got back, was that when you started? When you got the GED? So
yeah, I got the GED there, and I managed to see they had a hangar where they had the helicopters from for the president. Helicopter 1, I don't know what they call them, 1 and 2 and 3. They had them there. I said, look at that, and we would come and see them, and that's where they had them. Who would have thought El Toro had those?
Yep.
Real shiny, real nice looking. Yeah, but yeah, I got my GED when I was there. After that, I got my GED, and then I got out.
Okay. Now, then, did you just live in Texas for a while after you got back, or?
When I came back to Michigan.
Okay.
And I came back and I see my mom, my brothers, and everybody. And then I went to work at a factory, and I started working back in the factories again. And so that's what happened. But
okay. Now, as you think about the time that you spent in the Marine Corps, I mean, how do you think that affected you, or what did you learn from it?
I learned from all that experience that I had there. I learned to always be watching everything, what I'm doing. I've always had this. I'm always in a crowd, but I'm always watching. I'm always, and I tell my kids, what you got to do is you got to, when you're in a crowd, or you don't know who it is, right? So you got to watch what you're doing. Always, never take it easy, but always watching. Even you go to a store or gas station, you always got to be watching. You got to be watching from left to right, see what's going, listen to what's going on around you. Don't be, So I learned that experience from that, and so we would know those kind of things, and so yeah, I learned that CPR and a bunch of stuff like that, all kinds of stuff that kept with me, and all this thing. But the most thing was learn how to watch myself at all times. So I'm always, even nowadays, as I go to a source, I have this tendency to look around. I have this tendency to I'm always like, but that's why that it stayed with me all the time. So I guess the training taught me how to do that stuff. I never got into fights after I got in service. I never did. Even though a bunch of guys, when I was drunk, I would challenge them to fight, but they wouldn't fight me. No, this is David. This guy's crazy. Don't mess with him. And I would do stuff like that. But I never fought anybody. I never, But one thing I did take from the Marine Corps, that you get up early in the morning. And I'm still used to. I get up at 3 or 4, 5 in the morning. I just wake up and I'm ready.
So how does your family feel about that?
Oh, they're used to it. They're used to it. My daughters are used to it. Not because you're in the Marine Corps and so forth, but they're used to it. I like it. I like it because now that I changed from military, now now I do migrant ministry. Now I go to the camps where I used to work in the fields. Now I go and take clothes and food for them. So I've been doing that for 20-some odd years. So now when I get up, now I start reading the Word. So now it changed completely everything. So it's different now. But I still, every once in a while, I'll still, I'm always still watching. Sometimes I want to, like something happens, I say, oh man, I want to get up and go after that. But, I'm more gentle, more peaceful. I don't stir up things anymore. Now that I accepted Christ, I'm relaxed now.
All right. Well, it makes for a good story, and you do a good job of telling it. So I'd just like to close here by thanking you for talking to me.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.